So here's Conor McGregor, confident as ever as he makes the walk to the octagon. This will be a highly competitive fight tonight against Tony Ferguson.
Welcome to GamingBolt, and today we're going to be reviewing EA Sports UFC 3. The main thing that stands out in EA Sports UFC 3 is the veneer of authenticity to it. That should probably come as no surprise to anyone who's picked up an EA Sports title over the last decade or so. After all, the franchise has made a name for itself in striving to recreate the authentic experience no matter what sport it tackles. EA Sports UFC 3 is no different in that regard. From the commentary, to the slick overlays, to the fighters' entrances, to round transitions, to the scoreboards, and just about everything else I could think of, EA Sports UFC 3 almost felt to me like I was watching the real thing on TV. And whether you're a fan of MMA fighting or a complete stranger to its world, this game is likely to greatly appeal to you. Veterans of the sport are likely to appreciate how faithfully the game recreates the brutal intensity of the combat sport with its mechanics, as well as the general atmosphere surrounding it. Newcomers, meanwhile, might find a surprisingly deep and addictive fighting game waiting for them, falling into the trap of one more fight after every round, playing into the night long after they'd originally intended to stop. Now, speaking as if this is the real thing on TV, of course those illusions were shattered right as soon as I started playing. This was through no fault of the game, mind you. I jumped into this game like I would into any new fighter, and decided to button mash my way to victory. EA Sports UFC 3, however, was going to have none of that. It punished me for my indiscretion and unnecessary aggression again and again until I was forced to stop and consider how the game played. EA Sports UFC 3 has a far more deliberate pace than other similar games on the market. From its unique but hugely intuitive and instantly understandable controls to how every action is capped by your stamina meter, it's a game that asks you to pay attention to your opponent and surroundings and act accordingly. Is your opponent about to attack from a certain direction? Maybe adjust your swerve or block accordingly. Do you notice them weak on one side? Well, double your attacks from that side. Do you see them hurt or limping? Attack that limb and knock them down. Every punch, every kick has an associated animation that you commit to. Every action has heft. You have so many different kinds of attacks and moves at your disposal. Uppercuts, hooks, punches, kicks, with technical modifiers, signature modifiers, and directional modifiers. It's easy to lose track of it all, but try and ever get too greedy and aggressive and you'll find yourself winded. Not just right then, but also permanently as you lose a chunk of your stamina for the rest of the fight. A miserable state of affairs since you need stamina to do just about anything. Maybe to your average fighting game fan this doesn't sound particularly special, but the key thing to note here is how unique it makes EA Sports UFC 3 as an MMA game, which I suppose would be the closest genre classification for it. There isn't quite anything else like it available. Slowly coming to grips with the game's unique take on fighting and learning the controls and the mechanics and going from losing every fight I played to actually winning them and winning them in different ways each time was a hugely satisfying experience that I haven't had from a sports game in a very long time. Of course, none of this would mean anything if there wasn't a large amount of content to back it up, and thankfully, the strong mechanical core of EA Sports UFC 3 is also backed up by a large amount of things to do. Yes, you get the requisite Fight Now option, as well as the option to play online, which seems to work out well as I experienced minimal lag during online fights, set up a tournament, or even engage in live events. That aside, there is a fully featured career mode. The amount of customization options you get offering granular control for creating your fighter is frankly ridiculous. From there, you start working your way up from the bottom. You'll be accepting fights, training, looking after your health, posting on social media, and of course, actually fighting in the career mode. It's actually really fully featured, and it's the reason that I ended up spending so much time on the game, because after each fight, I'd tell myself just one more, and then I'd spend the better part of the hour in prepping for, and then actually trying to win said fight. Of course, this is an EA Sports game, which means that in addition to the career mode, you also have Ultimate Team. And Ultimate Team works pretty much how Ultimate Team always does. You'll be buying card packs to build up your roster, equip them with moves, grant them buffs and perks, and more. And yes, as always, there are microtransactions governing your purchases of these card packs, though mercifully, these microtransactions seem to be limited to this mode alone and don't affect your progression through any other mode in the game. All that aside, even beyond its merits as a faithful video game creation of the combat sport, EA Sports UFC 3 is just a darn good video game that's hugely satisfying in its own right, and I think that's the game's greatest achievement. From its strong controls to its great core mechanics that make it unlike anything else on the market today, to its strong presentation, except for the licensed soundtrack, which in true EA fashion is forgettable at best and obnoxiously offensive at worst, to the huge amount of content that it offers, EA Sports UFC 3 is a knockout. That'll be it for this video. If you like what we're doing, please go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.